Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar for Making Tax Digital for Income Tax in Sage 50 accounts, specifically for landlords. Today's session is all about how to get set up, process and submit quarterly updates in 50 accounts. Now we're not going to be covering legislation on today's session as there is a dedicated webinar for that, and I will show you in just a moment how to get registered for that. The questions panel will be open today. Please do bear with us on the questions front. We may not be able to answer all of your questions today. And we will be prioritising questions related to the product first, rather than covering legislation. The session is booked out for around 45 minutes, but we may not need all of that time, so you may get some time back today. My name is Abby. I'm a learning facilitator here at Sage. Today, I'm going to take you through MTD for income tax within your Sage 50 accounts software. Okay, so we're going to start today's session by talking about some important considerations before using Sage 50 accounts for MTD for income tax. We'll then move on to onboarding your 50 accounts with MTD with some video demonstration. We'll then delve into digital records and quarterly updates, and then I'll also show you how to submit your quarterly updates using 50 accounts as well. And then towards the end of the session, we'll summarise what we've covered and give you any last chance to get your questions across to us. But do keep your questions coming throughout today's webinar. I do have some colleagues on hand to answer your questions. Okay, so important considerations. So, Sage 50 accounts is one income source per company. If you have more than one registered property income source, or you are a registered sole trader and a UK registered property income have a property income source as well, then you need to submit individual quarterly updates and annual submissions. So therefore, you're going to need individual ledgers for each of the income sources. So you can handle this by using multiple companies in 50 accounts to submit for each income source for one individual. You can, or alternatively, you can use a company in 50 accounts for one individual, and if you have either more than one income source, or you might have shared ownership, you can also use Sage Sole Trader for another. If all properties are registered under the same business with HMRC, you can submit one quarterly update in 50 accounts for your share, whether they are fully owned or equally shared. Just a reminder as well, foreign property is not currently supported in Sage 50 accounts. So those are your important considerations. Next, I want to move on to shared ownership. So if you share ownership of one or more rental properties, you must only report your share of the income and expenses to HMRC. If your ownership percentage differs between the properties inside the business, you have three options. So you can record transactions at the percentage of ownership for each property manually. You can create a dedicated nominal code in 50 accounts for each property, enter transactions for each property against this nominal code, and export the values to be imported into Sole Trader. So it's a bit like an opening balance for submission purposes. For more complex queries, we recommend that you contact your accountant or bookkeeper. They may have other solutions. Now, I'm just going to go through some scenarios of shared ownership when we're using 50 accounts. So in this scenario, we're going to go through, we have a married couple who own some properties with a 50-50 split. and they're going to be using Sage 50 accounts, but they're also VAT registered and they also need to complete a bank rec. So in that case, the values need to be in full amount so that their VAT and that their bank rec is accurate. So in their main data, they will need to set up MTD and enter the values in full so that their VAT return, as I mentioned, the VAT return and the bank rec balances. When you come to set up MTD, you would need to set the required shared percentage to 50%. So when the quarterly update is calculated, it knows to half those values for the submission of the first individual. For the second individual, you would then export those transactions using the transaction CSV report, but specifically the one where it turns your purchase payments and your sales receipts into payments on accounts, so that you can allocate them in the other company. So for your second individual, you would create a second company if your license allows you to do so. You would then need to set up the company the same. So you would need the same customers, same suppliers, nominals, before you import any transactions. And the reason for this is because when you try to import transactions, if you don't have any of those records already in, the imports are going to fail. So make sure that you've got all your records in there before you import any transactions. But if you do need any support exporting and importing your records from one company to another, we do have webinars on exporting and importing records. So you can just find that out by going to sage.co.uk/webinars if you need support with that. You would then also set up MTD the same. So you would set it up with a 50% percentage because you're going to be importing those transactions at full value from your previous company. So once your transactions have been imported, you can then proceed to submit quarterly updates, checking that the figures are correct. So that's a scenario if you're going to be using 50 accounts. In the event that you don't have extra licenses, company licenses for your 50 accounts, you do have the option to use Sage Sole Trader as well as 50 accounts. So we're going to go through the same scenario, but we're going to use Sole Trader as the second company. So exactly the same. Set up your MTD, enter your transactions at full value, so then you can submit your VAT returns, reconcile your bank account, and submit for your first individual. You would then export those transactions using the MTD reports. And you can find those in the trial balance section of the reports and nominal codes. And you'll only see those reports if you have MTD activated. But you would then use the MTD reports. Now, these reports, all they do is export the category totals, not individual transactions. So when you're using Sole Trader, in this case, it's going to be purely just submitting the figures, the category totals. So it's not going to reflect individual transactions like it is in 50. So in that secondary data for that second individual, you could use Sole Trader Free, you could use Sole Trader Paid. In this example, we're going to use Sole Trader Free. So you would set up set up the company or the individual in Sole Trader Free. You would set up MTD the same, where you would apply that 50% because your transaction, those imports are going to go in at full value. Those category totals are going to go in at full value. So you would set it up at 50%. So when it comes to do the submission, it knows it needs to half those figures. So you import your category totals using those reports. In Sole Trader Free, you get 25 auto categorization credits for your import. If you have more than 25, you will need to categorize the rest manually. If you have less than 25, it will do it for you. Still check that they're correct. Alternatively, our paid version, there is no limit on auto categorization for those categories. So once you import the totals, you've checked that they're all correct, and everything shows as it should, then you can proceed to submit the quarterly updates. Okay, so that is the broken down a little bit in terms of shared ownership. The 50/50 tends to be the most common query that we get when it comes to submitting as a landlord. So that's kind of your options and how it would work using 50 or 50 and sole trader. Okay, so let's take a look at the onboarding process within 50 accounts. So to begin the onboarding process, there's a few things that you need. So when you're a landlord, you need to be on version 34 or above. You need the government gateway credentials. If you're an agent or an accountant bookkeeper, you'll need your ASA account if that's what you're submitting through. You're going to need your national insurance number, or if you're an accountant, your client's national insurance number. You're going to need your manager login for 50 accounts. You're then going to also need the Sage account details if your company is not already connected, linked to connected services, then you'll need a Sage account, but you can create that within the process. Once you've linked all of those details, that you need, you're then going to link a Sage account if not already done so. You're going to sign up to MTD for income tax with HMRC. And then you're going to authorize 50 to link with HMRC Gateway. One thing to be aware of is that the government credentials are saved per user. And the reason for this is it gives you control on who can view and submit to HMRC. However, once it is set up by the manager, each individual who will need to get access will need to also authenticate the government login before they can proceed. But once they've authenticated on their user, they can then just proceed. And I'm not entirely sure how long it authenticates for, but like I say, typical HMRC, it'll authenticate for so long and then you'll need to re-authenticate at some point in the future. But it will be per user, so at least that does give you control on who has access to that information. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the first demonstration on how to set up MTD in 50 accounts. If you do have any questions, do pop them across and me and my colleagues will be able to pick these up for you.
Signing up for Making Tax Digital for income tax in Sage 50 accounts is simple. In this video, we'll look at how to link your government gateway account to your Sage 50 account software and assign income tax categories. To do this, from the Connected Services menu, select MTD for income tax. If your company is already connected to a Sage account, you'll go straight to step 2, sign up for Making Tax Digital on HMRC. If it's not yet connected, you'll need to connect your company to a Sage account first. Click Connect Company to a Sage account. Enter your first and last name. If this is the first Sage 50 accounts company you're connecting to a Sage account, these details will become the account owner. Click Continue. Your company details are confirmed here. Check these details are correct. Any changes you make in this step will also update company preferences. Once you're happy, click Continue. You'll now be prompted to log in or create an account. Enter your email address, then click Continue. If a Sage account already exists, enter your password and log in. If not, you'll be guided through creating one. Your company is now connected to a Sage account. To complete setting up the service, click Continue. Make sure you've registered for Making Tax Digital for income tax through your government gateway account before continuing. If you've not done this yet, click Sign Up on HMRC and follow the on-screen instructions. If you've already signed up, click here. To authorize Sage to share updates with HMRC, you'll need your Government Gateway login details and national insurance number. To create a secure connection, first click Authorize with HMRC, then click Continue. You can now sign in to the HMRC online service. To do this, click here, then sign in with your HMRC user ID and password. Now click Give Permission. Next, enter your national insurance number and click Continue. From the list, select the UK property business you wish to set up and click Continue. Next, you will be asked whether you share ownership of your properties. If not, select No and continue to complete the setup. If yes, you'll be asked whether your accounts reflect your share. If they don't, you'll be prompted to enter your percentage of ownership. To continue, click here. Check the details displayed are correct. Once you're happy, click Confirm and complete setup. Your software is now MTD ready. To ensure accurate quarterly updates, you must assign income tax categories to any profit and loss nominal codes being used. To do this later, click Done. To do this now, click Assign Income Tax Categories. To select a tax category on an individual basis, click the drop-down and select the required category. Multiple nominal codes can also be assigned to a single tax category. To do this, hold down the Control key on your keyboard, then select the required nominal codes. Now, from the toolbar, click Change Tax Category. From the drop-down menu, choose the required category, then click OK. To deselect nominal codes, from the toolbar, click Clear. To import your tax categories from another company or export from this company, you can use these options along the top. Once you're happy, click Save, then Close. To complete the setup process, click Done. If you chose to assign tax categories to nominal codes later, you can access the settings from the Nominal Codes module. From the module, click Assign Income Tax Categories, make the necessary changes and click Save. You're now ready to start submitting your quarterly updates in Sage 50 accounts. You've now learned how to link your Government Gateway account to Sage 50 accounts and assigned income tax categories.
Okay, so don't worry if you weren't able to try and set up at the same time as the demonstration. You are going to get a recording of this webinar, so you will be able to revisit the demonstrations that are included. Okay, so let's take a look at the requirements. So what is it that you need to be recording and submitting? So you can break down MTD for income tax into 3 sections. So first, we have recording your income and expenses. So if you're already using software, you may already be doing these steps. So in that case, nothing is going to be changing for you. You're just going to be keep recording your transactions. You just need to make sure that when you're recording for each business or each property that you own, that you're selecting the right nominal codes. Secondly, in the quarterly updates, so these are just going to be the totals for each category. So which, if you've entered into the software already, they will be calculated and added together for you. So you're not sending HMRC transactional data. All the software is doing is when you're processing those transactions, it's picking up the nominal codes that you have assigned to those transactions, and those nominal codes will be mapped to income tax categories, and that's how it gets your figures. Lastly, final adjustments and corrections in submitting the tax return. So although you can make adjustments throughout the year, you may need to check if any final adjustments, or you may need to claim any relief, and that can be done at this point. So once all the checks have been done, you can then submit your final tax return, confirming everything has been submitted that is to the best of your knowledge. So let's have a look at digital records and quarterly updates explained. So when it comes to processing in the software, you must enter all income and expenses. If you are a sole trader and a landlord, you must keep your property digital records separate from your business digital records. When entering transactions, you must include the mandatory fields like date, nominal code, and amount. In the latest update, so version 34, when entering transactions, the process remains the same. You just need to make sure that you are selecting the correct nominal code. So when you map your nominals, the transactions are picked up on the quarterly updates. Now, the categories are defined by HMRC. So it's going to be the likes of property income, property expenses, finance costs, and relief. So you might be wondering, well, what am I expected to record? So for your property, whether that's shared, you'll be looking at rent, lease fees, reverse premiums and inducements, cost of repairs, maintenance, and potentially other services. For shared ownership, as I've mentioned, you must have separate records per individual. There is no sharing one data set for one property, as you are only able to submit one set of quarterly reports from one data set. So what you might find is that you're actually already recording all of this information. So this part of the process may be no different for you. Additionally, you can automate some of your processing using something called bank feeds. Now, we've got a session on bank feeds, and we've been doing those for quite some time now. But there may be some that you can register for live, or you can watch the recordings on our recordings page. But what you can do is you can use bank feeds rules to automate your transactions as and when they come in from the bank. Okay, so quarterly updates are a simple summary of income and expenses, and it's going to support you and HMRC in understanding your tax and national insurance liability across the year. So what must be in a quarterly update? So it's income and expense tax category totals for the period, so you're not sending HMRC transactional data. This is the same information that would be provided on the existing self-assessment tax return, but it's now just going to be provided more often, so you're going to provide it quarterly. Now, don't worry if your data is not completely accurate within these stages, because you can always adjust in the next quarter, as the periods are cumulative. You just need to make sure at the final stage of coming to submit your tax return, it is as accurate to the best of your knowledge. If you wish to view the tax categories outside of the software, on your handout at the bottom, I have provided a link to a guide that explains the tax categories. So now I'm going to show you a demonstration on how to process and submit. If you do have any questions, again, do keep them coming. I can see we've had one pop through. I know my colleagues managed to pick that one up. If you do have any others, do pop them through to us.
Entering transactions under Making Tax Digital for income tax remains the same. When you go to post a transaction, just make sure you enter the date, a nominal code linked to a tax category, and also the amount, and then click Save and Close. In the Nominal Codes module, you can assign nominal codes to tax categories and submit your quarterly updates. To submit a quarterly update, click here. Use the drop-down menu to choose your tax year and update period. Here you'll also see your next submission deadline and the date of your last submission. If you share ownership, your percentage will be shown here. To export the quarterly report as a CSV file, click here. To view the transactions behind each tax category, click the total. From here, you can export the total value for the tax category. To export individual transactions, click into the total and click to export. If you spot any discrepancies, simply find the relevant transaction and make your changes. Once you're happy with the figures, click Submit to HMRC. On a successful submission, a correlation ID will be displayed. Make sure to keep a note of this for future reference. If you forget to copy it, you can find the correlation ID in Connected Services under MTD for income tax settings. Here you'll also find your shared ownership percentage, your update period, the option to copy the last correlation ID, and the option to disconnect the income tax service.
Okay, so after you've done your final submission, your last quarterly, we then have the final tax return within our personal tax product that will link with 50 accounts. Now this stage is still in development, so what you're seeing here is subject to change, but there will be a version ready ahead of the first final tax return deadline. Another key thing to note here as well is that there will be no charge to do your final tax return within personal tax. Okay, so as I've mentioned in my legislation webinar, we do have a free course that is available to you. We like to make the information as accessible as possible. So we have a webinar, but we also have a fully in-depth course on legislation. And you can do this at your own leisure. It's interactive, and you can also earn a digital badge by completing the course. You can share the badge on your email signature or social media like LinkedIn. If you want to get registered on your handout, you can click on the link. And just a reminder, it is completely free as well. And you can share that with your colleagues if you want to get them to do the course as well. Okay, so to summarize, you must be on version 34 to submit for or record for landlords. Shared ownership. Each individual must have their own data to submit quarterly updates. You can use Sage 50 accounts and sole trader. If all properties are registered under the same business or same individual, you can process in one company and submit one quarterly update in 50 accounts, whether they are fully owned or equally shared. So in that example, you might have a few properties, but as long as they're all 50% or they're all 33.3% or whatever, as long as they're all equally shared, that's fine. Foreign property is not currently supported in Sage 50 accounts. The way that you process transactions remains the same. Now, something really important, if you are a landlord, you can continue to process transactions in the software, but you must wait to activate MTD for income tax until version 34 is installed. So it could be that you're not able to upgrade just yet. It could be down to, IT or, something else. So you can continue to process your transactions, but do not activate MTD for income tax until you are on version 34, specifically for landlords, because the income tax categories are different to that of the sole trader. Okay, so once that is activated, you can't change back. So that's why it's really important to wait until you are on the version 34. Final tax return process is in development and will be available ahead of the final tax return. Now I have included some resource down the right hand side. So we've got the MTD for Income Tax Hub. I'll just share some of these with you. So that one is Find the right one. There we go. So this is the MTD Income Tax Hub. So if you are looking to also acquire sole trader as well as 50, you can find more information on this page. If you scroll down, you've got the free version and then you've got the paid version as well. I've also included a link for shared ownership, so that should give you a bit more of an insight into what are your next steps if you do have shared ownership properties, and that may be a little bit more complicated. I've also provided a link to support and income sources, and then also on our help centre we have a 50 accounts MTD income tax hub as well, so I'll quickly show you that one. So on the homepage of the help centre, you choose your product, and then one of the tiles you'll see manage your taxes for making tax digital for income tax. So we've got that option there as well. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's session. So you're going to get around 10 minutes back. So please feel free, if you've got another question, do pop them across. We'll stay around for another minute or so. If you've got what you need today and you want to leave the session, you'll receive that email in around an hour or so with links to our webinar schedule and today's recorded session for you to refer back to if needs be. Upon exiting the session, you will see a survey at the end. If you could please let me know any feedback regarding today's session. What did you like? What would you like to have seen? What could we do better? We do like to read every single comment that does come through to us as well. Okay, so no other questions have came through. So what I'll do is I'll wrap this session up. I want to say thank you to my colleagues who have been on hand today to answer your questions, and thank you to you all for your participation. Just a reminder, we've got plenty of sessions over the next couple of weeks, so don't be shy and get registered. I want to say another thank you and take care.